I'm Gorilla Monsoon.
I'm Bobby the Brain Heenan.
And I have no idea what the hell we're doing here.
Does he ever?
Gene, we're recording a promo for a podcast.
What the hell is that?
It's a show where...
Promo, that's where you hype something.
Why don't you be serious?
He asked.
Oh, Heenan, damn it, I know what a promo is. What the hell is a podcast?
It's a show where people, they talk into microphones, usually from their house.
Naked, too.
Stop it.
So, why do they do that?
I'm not sure, really.
Definitely not for the money.
Oh.
You better believe it.
So, what's this one called?
Let me see. The Hot Tag Podcast.
Whoopee. Does anyone listen to this?
Well, I don't know. I'm sure
The government is testing it as an alternative to the chair.
Will you stop that? That's not nice.
Oh.
It's illegal in 11 states.
Quiet. And welcome to the Hot Tag Podcast.
They're not really naked, are they?
I certainly hope not.
Oh, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Hot Tag Wrestling Show presented by SeatGeek. I am your host, Christy Francesco, my co-host, just like every other week. It's not taped. It's not recorded. It's not, I guess we are actually via satellite in a way, but George Rogers is here. George, what's going on, man? How are you?
Is it live or is it Memorex? As our good buddy Nate used to say.
That's right. Our good buddy, the surprise entrant into this year's Rumble.
Entrant number 31.
All right, what's going on, everybody? We are here to cover Raw versus Nitro from January 8th, 1996. We have officially turned into a new calendar year here. And like we've already said, 1996 is, George, I guess we could say 1996 is the catalyst to everything that's going to just blow up in the wrestling world. And probably in about 2 years from right here, pretty much, I think it really starts to blow up right around this time, 2 years from now for WWF, because that's right around the time Mike Tyson shows up. He shows up for that 1998 Royal Rumble. And then we're full speed ahead to WrestleMania 14, where that Austin era begins. Spoiler alert, that's what happens at WrestleMania 14.
It's like if we're doing this in Back to the Future terms, because it all comes back
It
one
does,
way or another.
always.
How Doc said that November 5th, 1955 is the red letter date, for history, because that's when he came up with that idea of flux capacitor.
Yeah.
1996 is like the red letter year for wrestling, because everything comes to, like, everything that we know starts this year.
Absolutely.
Like everything to follow, everything that made wrestling get its big boom. It kind of rises to the popularity that it has today. It all happens in 1996. It's a little more instantaneous with WCW. With WWE, it does take a little bit to get the footings before they decide, all right, let's put some faith into some of these guys and see what they can do.
Hey, look, and when it comes to WWF, there's a certain monumental debut on this episode of Monday Night Raw that we're really gonna have here.
You're talking about you're talking about Jeff Gretler, right? The guy that faces Ahmed Johnson.
Damn right I am.
You're damn right.
This show's always about Ahmed Johnson and what he's doing, because
or what he's not doing,
All right, so real quick, I know you talked about it on the other show. I'm not going to mention the competition, the other show that you do.
The competition.
Obviously, it's a different audience. We just witnessed this past Monday the debut episode of Monday Night Raw on Netflix to a record-breaking crowd.
Well, I'll wait for the real numbers from Meltzer.
Well, the good thing is he won't be able to find the real numbers because streaming numbers don't exist unless you hear from the company themselves. That's true. The good thing about being on streaming services now is that if he posts anything that's not accompanied by per Netflix, then he's 100% lying. So that's a good thing, is that he's now pretty much has nothing else to do now.
I guess that probably puts Thurston out of a job.
Thank God. I can't imagine how many times he was punching himself in the dick with how great of an audience Raw got on Netflix. And then I can't even imagine how many beer bottles, and he was smashing over his face when he saw NXT get 970,000 viewers.
He was smashing beer bottles, and Dave threw more papers around his office.
Yeah, he was wearing his Hangman shirt and smashing Great American Beer across his head, because that's the real American beer. He's such a clown. Oh no, Dean, you are. Yeah, Nielsen will come out with it in 3 to 4 weeks, and they'll be totally just wrong, because no one to this day has been able to explain. And I studied Nielsen in college, and even college professors and books still can't explain how Nielsen gets their ratings, because they just don't explain it.
What you should have done? What you should have done instead was you should have done like me and studied Leslie Nielsen in college.
Oh, that would have been significantly more fun to do and worth going to class every day. But George, overall, I thought it was a really good show. I agree with what Eric Bischoff said on his post show, where he said,
I think it was a great debut.
Yeah.
For Raw, to get some viewers, get people looking like, all right, maybe I'll tune in week to week, but we'll see. But what did the Bish say?
I agree with what Bischoff said, where he said it was more of a branding statement for the WWE, where you have the brand new ring mats. Just you have Hulk Hogan coming out and promoting. It was all about promoting the celebrities that were in the audience. It was more about making sure the world knows on Netflix the global impact of branding that the WWE really does have. The amount of Fortnite is in the middle of the ring. You got obviously Prime is a big sponsor, Real American Beer, and the count. C4 is a really big brand for them. But it never ends. I mean, Goodyear. There's just so many massive companies that sponsor WWE. And they took every advantage that they should have. Oh my God, Dean, that's a great throwback. Stacker 2.
Stacker 2, yeah.
That's a good one.
Or that Hanson's energy drink that X-Pac would always drink.
Oh my God.
That was also in the green and black can, so it matches tights.
So, So I thought it was a great show. I thought they accomplished everything that they wanted to. It was a 3-hour show, a little bit over 3 hours. Did they push storylines or enhance storylines? I don't think so. But I don't think that was the point of it. I think the point of that Raw was, one, to show off the power that they have of branding, and I think it was to show off the technology, the production value, and like, hey, here's our superstars. Yeah. Here's Roman. Here's Punk. Here's Rollins. Rhea Ripley, The Rock. I thought that The Undertaker showed up. That was more of, hey, we're the WWE. This is who we are. And now I think it's time, as we go on week to week, month to month, obviously, now it's time to build towards the Rumble and build towards WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. But I thought they did an incredible job of letting the world know on a streaming service what they are and what's going to be coming down the pike.
Right. I mean, it's pretty safe to say that more people in America probably have Netflix more than they have like a cable.
Of course.
So,
yeah.
More than they have cable. So they're going to have a bit of a broader reach. And as you said, it's to let people, and especially people on Netflix, not everyone watches wrestling anymore. It's clear when you look at the ratings across the board, especially over the last 20 years, how it's had like dwindling viewership. But this is, I mean, this was a statement to let them know, hey, we're still live, we're still cooking, and this is what we're bringing to the table. So maybe you get some people that are going to maybe get some new eyes. I want to tune in week to week and see what happens. Maybe Macaulay Culkin keeps showing up every episode and getting monster pops in the crowd.
Man, he's so over. He knows how to work that camera at a wrestling.
So over.
I know. Ricochet can only dream of that kind of popularity.
The only thing I felt bad for was was Will Friedle, the guy who was Eric on Boy Meets
Mhm.
World, because he
Yeah.
was there with Topanga. And they didn't even mention him. It's like,
Nope, not when Topanga's there.
it's like, come on, man. That's Terry McGinnis. That's Batman Beyond right there. Put a little respect on his name.
But no, I thought it was well done, and I'm excited for the future. And look, when we talk about the declining ratings over the last decade, it's not an excuse. It's a mere fact that how us Americans and people across the world consume media and consume television it's ever changing. It's adapting every single day. Raw might get like a 1.7 on the USA Network, but one video from one segment of their show in 24 hours has over 1 million views on YouTube.
Yeah.
So, you're getting so many eyeballs from different avenues now. Yeah. And the same goes for any other wrestling company, any other, sports, television, anything. If it's going to get a different audience in different spaces, and that's just the way it is. So yeah, I mean, what we saw on Raw, is it going to be between a 2.9 and a 5 every single week? I don't think so. I mean, it's going to level out, obviously. But can it hover around that 2.5 to 3.5? I think it could do that every single week. It might even be more. You just don't know. It might take a week or 2 or 3 for people to realize WWE is live on Netflix. The casuals might come back because of it. Because like you said, tens and hundreds of millions of people have Netflix. So, it might just take time. That's all. Mm-hmm. But okay, let's get into why we're here, and that is Raw versus Nitro, because of the impact that, I guess the special debut of Raw here tonight. We're going to cover Monday Night Raw first. Fun fact, everyone, this Monday Night Raw is on Netflix. The next 2 weeks is not.
No, it's not.
But this one is, so that helps. So here we go. Your host here. It's a taped episode. I didn't see where they were at. Probably Sheboygan somewhere. Your hosts are Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler. The opening matchup is Jeff Jarrett versus Hakushi. This match goes 8 minutes. We saw a lot of Hakushi in 95. We're going to see him in 96. This was kind of boring, and it sucks because I am a Jeff Jarrett fan. He gets to win here at 8 minutes. I think by the end of this match, both these guys were like, oh, let's just get to the end here. Your thoughts on the opener?
It was a good match. It wasn't like a typical squash, although we got one of those coming up. So don't you worry, folks. They're coming. But it one. It gets Hakushi on TV. It gets Jarrett a little TV time because he's feuding with Ahmed Johnson. They're going into the Royal Rumble. Mm-hmm. They got a match coming up, and it gets them on TV just to maybe generate a little bit of interest, or just to let people know, hey, this guy's going to have a featured match on the pay-per-view, not just thrown into the Rumble match.
Right. So, yeah. We had the Royal Rumble Slam Jam with Jim Ross and Scheme Gene.
No.
No.
That is not my Slam Jam. My Slam Jam has Doc Hendricks. I don't know what the fuck this was. Yeah. This was like a Ram Jam. I'm not here for this.
A Ram Jam. The next match here is a Ram Jam. Ahmed Johnson versus the one and only Jeff Bretler. I mean, he's wearing pants that was probably donated by Abdullah the Butcher.
Those pants were a fucking choice, man.
That's probably a word for it. Yep, a choice.
It makes me wonder if he was even like a wrestler, or if he was just some fucking guy backstage who knew how to take bumps, and Vince is just like, hey, put these pajama pants on and go out there.
He also took some stiff suplexes, that's for sure, in that very beginning. But the end comes at about 90 seconds, a spine buster and a Pearl River plunge. Honestly, man, who let this goof on TV? Like, I know it's obviously the goof himself, Vince McMahon, but come on, man. I mean, you get Jeff Jarrett here at the end. He tries to sneak attack, but then decides to run away. Whatever.
Typical chicken shit heel stuff from
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett, which is
Yeah.
that's what I expect in mid-90s Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah.
Come in, sneak attack, run away, do a little strut. Ain't he great? Damn right he is. But so I was while watching this match, I think I kind of came to a bit of a realization with Ahmed Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
He is the WWF's Goldberg.
That makes sense.
You can't put him in a long match because he can't go. He's there just to do spots, get a quick pin, and put over how big he is. Or at least how powerful he is. I mean, that was basically the formula that they used for Goldberg. They just kept it going for a while to kind of build up the streak and give him momentum. Ahmed Johnson, I mean, he was pretty much exposed from the second he's in matches that are longer than,
for sure.
They're longer than 5 minutes. Like he can't hang.
Mm-hmm.
But it was almost, but it just feels a way to like how we talked about, like, you know, how many squash matches does he need to get? And I'm thinking, it's like, no, that's what Goldberg had for like the first year, which was all squash matches.
Mm-hmm.
Like and when Goldberg did get the one like longer match, he got exposed and the wrong person got fired for it.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty monumental moment here, George. The Ringmaster debuts on the Brother Love show as Ted DiBiase officially crowns him as the new $1 Million champion. Austin cuts a pretty good promo here to start this awful gimmick, but man, what a real lame name to overcome. You know, when people talk about, oh, you know, he was straddled, that guy was straddled with a bad gimmick. Dude, you didn't come in as the freaking Ringmaster.
I guess on the plus side, this name does only last like a month and a half.
Right. Yeah.
Before it gets dropped.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God he came up with something else. Otherwise, he would have been like Otto Von Doom or Fang McFrost.
You know, it was Otto Von Ruthless, Fang McFrost, and Ice Dagger.
Ice Dagger.
Can you believe
Vince
McMahon?
Not to be confused with the Ice Train over in WCW.
Can you believe that Vince McMahon went to Steve Austin and thought, let's call you Ice Dagger. Let's call you Fang McFrost.
You make it seem like that's the worst thing he's ever done. Or like that's the idea. He's like, I mean, he went up to Mosh Chaz and was like, hey, we're gonna put you in a domestic violence gimmick.
Or hey, Brian Pillman, we're gonna give you a gun.
Oh, hey, really Pillman's Got a Gun was a great segment, and it brought eyes to the product. Having Mosh come out every week with his girlfriend with a black eye, while he gets just eviscerated by his opponents because they think he's beating his girlfriend.
Yeah, or hey, Mae Young, have you ever thought about delivering a hand?
Meanwhile, she chugs a beer and smokes a cigar, and she's like, goddamn right I have.
Or
get out of the way, kid. Let me show you how this is done.
Or how about, hey, Mark Henry, would you like to kiss a woman with a penis? By the way, everyone, I didn't make that up. That's real. Just look it up on YouTube. Here we go. Goldust versus Aldo Montoya, who some of you degenerates of ECW would know him as Just Incredible.
So disrespectful. My God. No, the degenerates. I mean, listen to you. Fucking nonsense. If Dean was still watching, he'd give you quite a tongue lashing.
Yeah, because Shane Douglas was so good. He made it real far in the biz. This is definitely the end of Aldo Montoya's semi climb up the card, I guess you can say. I mean, he was talked about a lot in the 1995 era, but this is kind of it, man. Thank God. Goldust attacks him, hits him with a backdrop suplex. As Vince, you could hear him say that he knows how to get heat. Like, what does that have to do with anything? Like, what are you talking about?
Who's screaming in Vince's ear on commentary? Because
exactly, my God. He gets Montoya loses, gets a curtain call at just about 3 minutes.
That was I think that was the first time that Goldust did the curtain call.
On television, it was.
Yeah. It still looks good too.
It is. I'm a big fan of that. We get Shawn Michaels here. He announces that he's coming back at the Royal Rumble. Lucky group of reporters who got to attend the press conference. Also, apparently at this time, it was reported that Shawn Michaels reportedly inherited $2.5 million from a fan and kept it quiet. It's just if that was a real thing, man, good for him to somehow and inherit over $2.5 million. But that was a big story in the dirt sheets in 1996, so it's got to be true.
Well, yeah.
After we finish with a full replay of the Bret Hart versus British Bulldog match from In Your House 5 a few weeks back.
I will say, though, rewatching that match, man, Bret had his working boots on because he was doing the work for two people in that match.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and watch that again.
It was a good match. It's just...
Mm-hmm. It just, was what it was.
It was just on fucking TV.
Yes.
Again.
Yep. So, you have this is complete with uncensored blood footage. Clearly they also didn't feel like editing out that weak finish, but no, that's neither here nor there.
Bret was gushing.
He was. Then we go after this, we have a Billionaire Ted skit. Billionaire Ted is looking for a new slogan and settles on where the big boys play because it's just dishonest enough to sound believable. Nacho Man suggests drug testing, but Huckster notes that they have nothing to worry about because they're not in the WWF anymore. What a load of horse shit this is. At this point, Sean, I'm not trying to be disingenuous, but at this point, you're running on, caffeine and a giant bag of amphetamines while, taking 15 somas a night. But, I feel dirty saying that, but this is a real ironic and dirty skit for Vince to be pushing here, knowing what he's got going on in his locker room too.
But on the inverse, when you look over at WCW, and you and I have said this because it's pointed out, especially when we started watching Nitro, Sting was looking pretty big.
Sting was looking big at this point.
And then he slimmed down. I'd almost say quick. It was like a gradual, but once he went down to the singlet, you're like, there's a difference here. Mm-hmm. But I mean, it is extremely fucking dirty and underhanded. But I mean, that's literally what this is. I mean, that's what this war is. It's one low shot after another. And at this point, is this shot any lower than having the former women's champion show up on the show and trash the title?
You're right. You're right.
I'm not trying. I'm not like trying to defend it.
No. I understand.
But there's low shots across the board. That's all this was just low hanging fruit. Right after the other.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't want to say good, but it was kind of refreshing to see that it wasn't one-sided.
Right.
That,
I agree.
So they are, so they are paying attention to what's going on over on the other channel. Mm-hmm. And I guess you can only, get hit so many times before you're like, all right, let me see what I can do back to them.
Yeah. Well, that's the end of this Monday Night Raw. George, your thoughts on this one, man? Because it's just bad.
It was better than the previous week's episode.
Yes, it was. But is that the?
We got a little bit of storyline progression with old Double J and Ahmed Johnson, but that was pretty much where it began and ended.
No Taker, no Brett. No Diesel.
They did announce that Jake Roberts was returning in the Royal Rumble.
They did do that. That's good. That's always
good. Not for nothing, but that was back when they were like, oh, like this person be in the Rumble, this person can be in the Rumble. I kind of missed that, but at the same time, I also like to be surprised. Just let me know if the 15 people who are like definite going to be in, and then let me be surprised when, I don't know, fucking Jack Swagger comes out.
That's funny. All right, so let's go over to the other channel. We're going to cover WCW Monday Nitro, where the big boys play. Here we are live from Charleston, South Carolina. Your hosts are Eric Bischoff, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Mongo. Mongo is stunned at the quality on the format sheet and can assure us that the other boys aren't going to do these kinds, aren't going to go these kind of lengths for their fans.
This is the thing. This is this is what I was talking about when I was telling you, is that like for months, this company, this show, WCW, has been taking shot after shot after shot at the other company.
Mm-hmm.
They did one Billionaire Ted segment last week, and these fucking people could not shut up defending their brand.
Yeah.
It's like really like that one little thing, and you guys are losing your minds now. And Mongo bragging about like giving away like the pay-per-view quality matches on TV for free. That's 1,000% going to come back and bite them in the ass.
Exactly.
1,000 fucking. And the best thing is that with the benefit of hindsight now that we're in 2025, going back and looking at it, it's like, that's not always a good thing.
Right. First match on the card here is Chris Benoit versus Alex Wright. Benoit just destroys Wright before you can even get his jacket off, throwing him around with a suplex and an elbow. Meanwhile, Brian Pillman is walking around ringside pretending to shoot himself in the head. Oh, boy. At some point during this match, which was pretty fun for me, Bischoff notes that Titanic Sports, for those who are new here, Titan Sports is what WWF traded under back then. Titan Sports is raising the price of their pay-per-views and charging fans to take pictures with their title belts, but WCW is holding the line at $19.99. Yeah, that would change very fast.
Yeah. Weird. It's like they're raising prices because they're in the business of trying to make money.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, as kids, we're like, yeah, that's messed up. Why would you raise prices? As an adult, you're like, oh, that's how businesses work.
Yes.
You have to make money. I mean, there was a lot just with, and I even told you, I was like, we're 7 minutes into this Nitro, and I filled up one whole page of my notes and just bullshit that was run off from the jerk offs on commentary.
Please give me some of your notes.
I mean, aside of Mongo bragging about giving away pay-per-view quality matches for free, which we know that's awesome. But if you're giving me pay-per-view matches, if you're giving me pay-per-view quality match on TV, what's my motivation to buy your pay-per-view then?
Agreed.
Because I can just wait for this match to show up on Nitro if that's what you're going to give me.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
that's always the argument.
So thank you for letting me save some money there, Mongo.
And it's crazy too, because like that same, sorry to cut you off, but like that same like whole logic is, remember like during the Attitude Era and then into the Ruthless Aggression era, you'd have a huge pay-per-view, right? Like on a Sunday or just a regular pay-per-view. It doesn't have to be a huge one. They had 19,000 of them a year at that point. But like on you on that following Raw and SmackDown, you're basically going to see the same matches.
Yeah,
booked on the paper. So I'm thinking to myself, why did I have to buy the pay-per-view? I'm going to see the rematches on Raw and SmackDown the very next night. This is the same thing that's going on here in '96.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Mongo also like bragged about the diversity on Nitro because because in the match I had Alex Wright, a German, and Chris Benoit, a Canadian, and they were bragging about the diversity. It's like, you got Canadians, you have one German guy, and you have Eddie Guerrero. So
Ice Train.
Tell me a little more about your diversity. Oh, and your black tag team champions, which have shown up one time since they won the belts back.
Yep.
So I'm not exactly sure what you're bragging about with diversity, because I mean, just the over on the other side, I saw Hakushi, who's Japanese, Ahmed Johnson, who's black, and Aldo Montoya, who's kayfabe Portuguese. Plus Bulldog and Brett in the match, and Bulldog's British and Canadian.
Right.
So, I mean, it's
right.
I mean, the diversity is the same on both sides. So you're not bragging anything.
No, the bullshit runs deep on both ends here. They're just trying to throw everything out that they can on commentary.
Here's another one for you. I'm just going to run them off real quick. This is something Eric Bischoff said, and I kind of laughed at it. WCW has introduced more new, exciting young talent to our sport in the last 90 days than any other organization has in the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not even saying WWF, I know that's a fucking lie because ECW literally was starting up and bringing new stars to the fold.
Yes.
Plus, I mean, if you want to go 2 years, all right, fine. So 94, all right, well, Diesel got pushed.
Yep.
The guy that you guys let go.
Mm-hmm.
But like whatever. Heenan said WCW has done more for young talent than Star Search has done for singers, dancers, and comedians. Just a heads up, the last 2 world champions on this show were Macho Man and Ric Flair. So they're thanks, young talent. Bischoff was bragging about being the most watched program on the most watched wrestling program. You and I literally talk about the ratings every week. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. So
Right.
it's whatever. And then, I mean, you mentioned the Titanic Sports joke. And then Bischoff, this is another one where he talks about the Royal Rumble, but he calls it the Royal Fumble.
Yep, that's later on, yeah.
Which is awesome, but I'm confused. How did that World War III match end?
Let's not talk about World War III.
I mean, it ended where, like, yeah, Macho Man eliminated one-man gang, but Hogan never got eliminated. So
you can't bring that up, dude.
And how bad was fucking Starrcade?
Oh my God, Starrcade.
Starrcade was
it was abysmal. Starrcade 95 was terrible.
That was a 2-flusher. So
that's funny.
I don't want to talk about fumbling pay-per-views, but I get it. Like the shots are coming around left, right, but it was like, for the first 10 minutes on this show, it was just like dick sucking after dick sucking after dick sucking. I'm like, wow, that Billionaire Ted sketch really fucking got to you that bad?
Mm-hmm. It definitely did, clearly. But back to this match, it was actually a really entertaining opening. It was really good. Benoit gets a dragon suplex finish at 6 minutes and 45 seconds. Pillman gets back in the ring to be all tough again. It was so much fun to watch this match.
Mm-hmm.
You have Wright trying to wrestle on the same level as Benoit, and he did a really good job of it.
And he's only like 19 there. Like Alex Wright is only 19.
Yep.
And the Bishop's like, oh, he's got a bright future. It's like, yeah, but nothing comes to it because you don't fucking book him.
Yep.
So you're the reason why he didn't have a bright future.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I love how, and Bischoff admits that too.
Yeah.
I love how Pillman is supposed to be like the dangerous rebel and still make sure to run away like a weasel when threatened. He just was he was so good in that character. Mm-hmm. Because a cool heel, gets cheered, and that wasn't his goal at that time, of course.
They had no idea what to do with it.
No, they didn't.
So it was just like, oh, he's out of control. So,
yeah.
Hey, Sullivan, rein him in.
We get to the next match here. Just another great match, man. Just Nitro just pumping out great matches here. Lord Steven Regal versus Eddie Guerrero. This is where we get Bischoff thinking that fans should forget about the Royal Fumble and watch the Clash instead. Man, this was so good. We get a lot of bitch slapping back and forth near the end, but Eddie gets pissed off and backslides Regal for the pin at 8 minutes and 13 seconds. Dude, Regal, like you and I, this is becoming like we're gonna start like a Lord Steven Regal fan club on this show. Because damn, dude, every week I feel like on Nitro, this dude's got his working boots on no matter who he's fighting. And he's just so entertaining. And then adding Eddie into this, man, this was awesome.
Yep. Our fan club will be called the Real Man's Men. This was such an exciting match to watch, especially knowing where both of these guys are going to go in their future. I mean, I think Regal's only got like maybe another year or so in the company at this point before he ends up getting 86 in favor of your boy Billy Goldberg.
Bill Gold.
And Eddie is just, I mean, Eddie doesn't, and once again, I'm not complaining because I am getting Eddie Guerrero matches, but do something with him. Give him a storyline. Put him in the hunt for the United States title. Who the fuck has the U.S. title? I don't even know because it hasn't been on TV at all.
Right. I agree, man. It's like the tag team titles, the TV titles, it's like they don't even exist. And then out of nowhere, there's a tournament.
Yeah, like the TV title, and this is what I keep telling you every week when I go through and look. The TV title is getting defended in dark matches. Put it on TV. The guy, it's fucking Johnny B. Bad. Like, just put him on TV.
Well, it is that time of the night, folks. We have a Sting and Lex Luger interview with Mean Gene, but this is a good one.
At least Jimmy Hart's not there.
Let's give it time. But Mean Gene first notes that the new generation just added a couple of guys who are closer to collecting Social Security. Oof. I'm assuming, obviously, he's referring to Big Van Vader. But I mean, who else did they sign around that time that I don't?
By this time, I mean,
Sid?
Unless they're no, Sid's already was already there. Sid's already been there for like a few months, so he can't be.
Oh yeah, 95. Yeah, you're right.
Unless they're talking about Austin.
Well, Austin was 31. He retired in 03 when he was 38.
Right.
So he's young. He's not macho or Hulk.
Yeah, but they're gonna like take the shots where they can with it. But I think Piper's going to be showing up in a couple months, and maybe that's another reference. I like Piper's getting signed, but I wouldn't talk about that because they're about to get Piper also.
Yeah, he's about to headline some major pay-per-views that gets with
But
Hulk.
even if they're talking about Vader, Vader at this point he's 40.
Who is staying here?
Point,
yeah.
So at this point, Vader, like when he debuts, he's 40. He's probably the oldest active wrestler on the roster, not named Jerry Lawler. Because I think Lawler might have been in his around his 40s also. But
yeah. Well, I know Brett was 38.
Sid, I don't think Sid was that.
Sid probably wasn't 38.
Sid was 30. Was 35.
Yeah, 35. Okay.
Sid was 35 in the beginning of '96. His birthday's in December. In fact, he had just turned 35.
Wow. And then the promo kind of gets weird. Sting has got issues with Luger's actions at Starrcade, but Lex deflects the question by telling him that they should form a tag team and go after the titles. And Sting, who's stupid, accepts this and is all pumped up about it.
Yeah.
because
they talk about how like Luger kept Sting from getting into the ring to let Flair win that triple threat match.
Yeah,
which it's always great when a triple threat match ends on a count out, but once again, Starrcade. But it was like, I was just hurt and I needed you to help me. Hey, let's be a tag team. And Sting's just like, man, that's the best idea I've ever heard. Let's fucking do it.
I'm super pumped up about it, dude. Next match here, Sting versus Diamond Dallas Page. Bobby the Brain Heenan notes that everyone is calling DDP Diamond Dallas Page. Although I really can't recall any single person in history saying that.
I don't think anyone said that.
But whatever, I'm sure Heenan was intoxicated. Page, he was like a walking gimmick at this time. I'm a big Diamond Dallas Page fan, but man, I'm so happy when he started becoming like that people's champion type guy. Because gosh, he was just a walking box of gimmicks at this time. We get, Page later on the match. It's a back chop suplex and neck breaker. So, he's doing some cheating moves here, which is good for the heel. Sting fights up and quickly hits the Stinger Splash. Page escapes the Scorpion, gets a neck breaker for a 2. Sting with a small package for a 2, but blind charge hits elbow. But a blind charge hits his elbow and gets a 2 for Page. Sting has finally had enough and shoves him down to finish with the Scorpion at 6 minutes and 22 seconds. It was fine, but again, like every WCW match ever, the finish was just terrible.
Yeah.
Why can't Sting just beat DDP clean? I don't get it.
Even at this, DDP is going to get better in the ring.
Yeah.
That's the important takeaway from this. Is that like even those matches of like a very by the numbers kind of like Sting match, like DDP is going to get better. And DDP is going to be the guy who's going to be pumping out who's going to be giving you quality matches.
Mm-hmm.
Like for the next 3 to 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean that's the one takeaway. Look, it's like LED. Like it wasn't a great match. I mean, it was a match, but very by the numbers.
Yeah. Yeah.
Much like the fucking main event is on this show.
Well, let's talk about it. Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man, the Mega Powers versus the the Four Horsemen, two of the Four Horsemen, versus Savage and Hogan versus Anderson and Flair. Flair desperately wants Hogan to start, and then immediately gets dominated by Hulk. Of course, Hulk no-sells the chops, hits the big boot, and the Horsemen go running into the crowd.
No way.
But you could tell, though, the crowd split. I mean, they're about as 50-50 as you can get right here. I
will say, like, leading up to this match on this show, how extremely, like, disrespectful that commentary team is to anybody else who's not Hulk Hogan.
It's really bullshit. And it's funny, I wrote that down.
Because
they just soap it up.
Because they talk about when they come out and they're like, oh, you got the former world champion Hulk Hogan teaming up with Macho Man Randy Savage, take on Arn Anderson, the current world champion Ric Flair. It's like, dude, Savage is the former world champion. Mm-hmm. He's the one who just lost that belt. Stop blowing this fucking bald-headed blonde son of a bitch who got his fucking comeuppance this week.
Damn right he did.
Who is just like, and this is the thing, like the boos were here. It's like anyone who's been watching wrestling for 30 years knows that like the shit that happened on Monday with Hogan getting booed, this was 30 years of buildup of people tired of seeing his ass. Mm-hmm. And it's even worse in WCW because WCW primarily does shows in the South. That's horseman. That's horseman country. It's Flair country. Like we always talk about how Charlotte is Flair country, but the entire Southeast is Flair country.
Yep.
Except for Memphis, that's Lawler territory.
He's the king of Memphis.
Yeah. But it's every time that's why the crowd is split because there are people. It's like there are people who are. It's the people who are booing Hogan are the ones who are tired of him, and the people are like, no, I've been watching Flair for like 15 years. Why am I going to cheer the fucking big guy from up north?
Yep. Mongo has to speak, unfortunately, during commentary here. He concludes that the Horsemen are scallywags who have done dastardly things. So, monkey see, monkey do. Yes, everyone, this is a real commentary team on a nationally televised wrestling show. It just, the match has a pretty good back and forth for the rest of it. Look, later on in the match, near the finish here, hot tag to Hogan from Macho. Obviously, the crowd here by this point could care less. Arn takes him out with a spine buster, great spine buster. Mm-hmm. But of course, the Hulkster's got to no-sell it. And he finishes off the Horseman at 12 minutes and 13 seconds. Just a shit match, thanks to Savage deteriorating by the minute before our very eyes, which is weird because, at the time he didn't seem that bad to me. Savage is wrestling hurt. But, at this point, it's the Hulk show. Every week's the Hulk show. But it is what it is. Savage has been carrying Monday Nitro from matches and wrestling good dudes on this card he's wrestling idiots like One Man Gang every week. Like what they've done to Savage creatively in WCW was just run him into the ground. Yeah. And I love how, later on in like 97 Starrcade, Macho wasn't even on the card until a late edition. And, Bischoff's like, oh, well, you can't have everybody on every big show. Less is more. Bro, in 95, 96, you were throwing Macho out there every single week against just about anyone that you threw a dart on a board to. So just stop.
And not just Nitro. Macho's wrestling Saturday night, too.
Exactly.
He was having matches on Saturday night, just like fucking jobber matches.
Exactly.
But like for Mach, a guy who's at this point now, he's getting on in years and he's wrestling hurt, and you're constantly putting him out there. It's like, once again, we always go back to this. Like, is this the Hogan influence? Mm-hmm. Is Hogan just saying, hey, why don't you just go have Randy in a match? Just kind of like obviously feeling obviously fueling his own desire of being the only fucking number one person on the company.
Yeah.
But also like disguising it as, hey, if you put Randy on this show, you'll get some eyes because he's a name, brother. Stuff like that. But it's like we all know there's a motive to this. And I even said to you, I was like watching these Nitros, especially this Nitro with this tag match, it makes me sick.
Yeah.
To see how much Randy sacrificed because he loved the business. He just loved wrestling.
Yep.
He loved being on TV and interacting with people and like doing stuff with the fans. And he would just sacrifice anything to like, hey, just for the good of the business. He went along with everything. Meanwhile, I said the other fucking jerk off is politicking and wheeling and dealing in the back to get what he wants. That way he keeps his spot. And it's why I said this is like why I said like what we said over a multiverse. Like, yeah, Hogan put over Goldberg, Warrior, and The Rock, but in 2002, The Rock didn't fucking need it.
No.
He was the bigger star. If WrestleMania was not in Toronto and was in America, Rock would have got way more fucking cheers.
Agreed.
Warrior fizzled out almost immediately. And Goldberg, I mean, he was the only one that really kind of maintains this, but he got booked into fucking oblivion.
He did.
So it's, like I said, like he doesn't do anything for the business. It's for himself.
Always.
It's to make sure that giant fucking ego, which is probably the reason why he doesn't have any hair, is because his ego is so fucking giant in his head that the hair follicles can't stay in. That it's disgusting because, and it makes me appreciate Randy Savage even more.
Same here.
It's like, it's like he could say he'd be hurt and be like, you know what, like Eric, I'm sore. I'm nursing this injury. Let me just take a little bit of time off. But Randy's like, no, this is a young upstart company. You're trying to get viewers every week. I know what my name brings. I know there's clap behind my name.
And let if you need me, I'm out.
Yeah, let me just go out there and get a choke slam from Andre the Giant's kid brother. Like, I'll go out and do any of that.
Yeah.
And it's and like I think that we always do our rankings. It seems like every couple of years we have a ranking on like greatest wrestlers. And the more I watch these Nitros, the more the respect I have for Savage. He's just going to keep moving up that list.
I agree. I think I'm going to be making alterations to that as well. After the match, Hulk can't even celebrate because a Dungeon of Doom invades and giant choke slams both Mega Powers to end the show. But don't worry, everyone. Next week we have Hulk Hogan versus Ming. Randy Savage versus Lex Luger for the 814th time. It was an odd show.
These are pay-per-view quality matches. I don't know. These are
you're damn right they are. But I will say the wrestling on this show was amazing for the most part. And this show was
to the main event.
Yeah. And this show was a breath of fresh air compared to Raw. Although Raw, of course, was better than the prior week's Raw. But that's not the standard Barry I'm going to put on that. But man, I'll tell you what, this was a really good episode of Nitro. What says you?
It was a good episode of Nitro. We're up into the main event.
Yeah, Hulk.
We're up into the main event. It was like, as I said, we had like our by the numbers Sting match, which is still an entertaining match. But we've said 100 times, you see one Hogan match, you see it all. You see, I mean, as soon as Macho's in there getting the shit kicked out of him 6 ways to Sunday. Hogan gets a hot tag, sells absolutely nothing, gets the pin. I'm surprised he didn't get the pin on Flair.
Right.
Also, I'm going to ask you this because I noticed this while watching the pay-per-view. Why didn't Flair come out with the world title?
That's a great question. Was that talked about at all and I just missed it?
They never mentioned. I'm sitting there looking because Flair's got the robe. He's got the robe like cinched up tight. I'm like, Flair usually, like when he's champ, like, he lets that belt. He lets he's got that belt. Like the robe is open a bit, or he's like revealing the title. I didn't even see like the silhouette of the title underneath the robe. So like my immediate knee jerk reaction is that like is Flair did not come out with the belt. And if Flair didn't come out with the belt, like why?
Right.
Like what's the cause? Is it if somebody else comes out with the world title who's not Hulk Hogan, he's afraid someone's going to steal the thunder?
I mean, Look, I mean, to be honest, at this point, would that shock you?
That's the thing. I don't want to sit there and blame like the Hogan influence on that and like just go to that as like the only tool in the bag. But when you say these things out loud, you're like, yeah, like it kind of makes sense. It kind of tracks in a way. But like Flair as champ, that belt was always just front and center.
Yeah. Yep.
He lets you know he's the fucking champ because he's the champ. Flair's always carried himself as a champion. Even when he doesn't have the belt, he carries himself like he's, you know, the biggest dick in the room. I mean, he still does because he doesn't know how to turn off. But it's just it just kind of blew my mind a little bit because I'm like, that's weird. Like even if it's a tag match, you still come out with the belt.
Paul, thanks for joining. What's going on, man? But yeah, you're right. I think it's becoming more and more glowingly obvious, George, that as we watch more and more of these Nitros in order, man, it really does show you how Hulk Hogan just ruined that brand week after week. And it's the booking. And that's what it was. Eric Bischoff was just throwing a card together and then just making sure that it appeased Hulk. Yep. And it was a problem because like you said, like we're saying here, you have Macho who, you know, you're the kind of company led by Bischoff who's sitting here saying, you know, less is more. This is where the big boys play. This is where all the true talent is. This is where all the entertainment is. And, you know, you got a guy like Macho Man who should be almost on a little bit of a heavier schedule than a Hulk Hogan. But you're throwing Macho Man out there in meaningless matches. You're talking about him not even as the former world champion that he was. You're not even mentioning that fact. Don't worry, Paul. I'm going to be watching. It's taped. I'm going to be watching that as soon as.
Oh, I am watching it. It's just muted.
Yeah. How dare you disrespect us on our show? But that's the thing. Like, we're doing everything we can to make sure Hulk's getting the spotlight. Dude, man, you have Flair. You got Arn. I mean, how many times, Georgia, you and I have to say every week, when are we going to spotlight and make the Four Horsemen viable?
We barely see all four of them together. And when we do, they're getting like held off by Hogan with a chair.
Yeah.
So they're not even looking threatening. And now they got the Dungeon and Doom involved with it, where like the Horsemen are feuding with them. It's like, but why? What's the purpose of this?
Right.
I mean, we know just from the mindset for the hindsight of what's to come that it's not going to get any better until Scott Hall shows up.
Right.
In fact, it gets really fucking bad in March with Uncensored. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, why don't you go ahead and do a little Wikipedia search for WCW Uncensored 1996 and just enjoy that shit.
I think it's one of the worst pay-per-views ever.
It
bad. Has to be.
I just watched a list yesterday. What Culture put up? It was like top 50 worst WCW moments. That cage match was in the top 10. So
makes total sense to me. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Well, at the end of this, Raw versus Nitro Monday Night Wars, Raw beat Nitro with a 3 to Nitro's 2.8. So somehow, Monday Night Raw is pulling a 3 with what they put on TV. But Nitro's right there at 2.8. Nothing to laugh at. Nothing to wave at. It's a good performance.
What was the Raw number the previous week on New Year's Day?
Let me check.
Because I feel like 3 is up because I feel like they probably did like a 2.2 or something.
So the week before was a 2.6, so it's
2.
up. Both shows were up this week. And next week Nitro pulls a 3.5.
I wonder if Raw got that little bump because they promoted that Bret Hart Bulldog match.
Well, there wouldn't have been a Monday Night Football game either.
No, because they're in the playoffs. They didn't do Monday Night Football games in the 90s.
Right. So, that's why both ratings are up. The next week, again, the next week here, you almost have a 3.5 by Nitro. In a few weeks, you're going to have Nitro pushing a 4. So that's going to be interesting to see as these ratings are going to start getting pretty fun to pay attention to. But that wraps this show up. Raw versus Nitro on January 8th, 1996. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications when we're going to be live again. George, what do you got coming up on the Multiverse Movie Podcast?
Well, Multiverse Movie Podcast, this week we did just post Iron Man 3 for those of you who want to listen to that. But next week we do have a bit of a milestone episode because it's celebrating 40 years this year since its release. We're doing the Goonies next week.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
That's.
I'm interested in seeing Dean's opinion since he hasn't watched the movie in probably 30 years.
We watched it yesterday, and he's like, this is a lot better than I remembered. So we're gonna have we'll probably have some favorable. I mean, I know I'm gonna have some favorable opinions on it because I do like the movie. I don't throw it in my top 10 all the time. I know some people do, but it's a very enjoyable movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially when you look at the people involved with it, like the 3 main people, like your director, Richard Donner. Screenplay was Spielberg, who also produced it, and then the story was Chris Columbus, the guy who directed Home Alone and the first 2 Harry Potter movies.
That's correct.
I know he did Sorcerer's Stone. I can't remember if he did Chamber or not.
I'm gonna check for you. Chris Columbus, American filmmaker. He did Sorcerer's Stone, The Chamber of Secrets. Yep.
The funny thing is that we're sort of looking at the names, and Dean's like, "Oh, I'm surprised I didn't see Feige's name up there." And I had to do like a Google search. I'm like, "Well, you wouldn't because Feige was 12 when this movie came out." So
he did some Chris Columbus did some bangers, man.
Yeah.
Gremlins. He did the Percy Jackson film in 2010, both Home Alones, Mrs. Doubtfire. Man, some really good resume there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's like the only thing that I'm just surprised that like John Williams didn't do the score. that's like the one thing I'm shocked about with it. But
yeah, that would have been perfect.
Yeah. Oh, that's at that point, that's license to print money.
For sure. All right. Thank you so much. Looking forward to that as always. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuned in. Next week, we'll be right back here again with another episode of the Hot Tag Wrestling Show covering the Monday Night Wars in order. So for George Rogers, I'm Christy Francesco. We'll catch you all down the road. Have a great rest of your week and weekend, and take care. Bye-bye.